Ah yes, we're talking about Hoodwinked today. No lie, I think this is one of my favourite movies of all time. I know that it's not the greatest visual eye candy, even for its time, and I know it has some pretty rough foundations that make it outdated every time the logos pop up now, but this movie blew me away as a kid for a term I'm just gonna call narrative time traveling. This movie is your fairy tale parody presented as a crime mystery, whereby there are four main characters and we hear the events of the same day from each of their perspectives. And the crux of the concept is that everyone overlaps, recontextualizing scenes anew and revealing more to us with each rerun. I adore it. And no other scene encapsulates this crossing of streams better than the Minecart sequence. Technically happening at both the 17-minute mark, the 30-minute mark, and 47 too. So let's get into it. We'll start off with Red's rendition of the plot. The context is this is a Red Riding Hood tale. She's trying to get to Granny's to deliver the secret recipe, whilst there's also a recipe bandit out on the loose. And that's led her here to these mountains with a yodeling goat.
37 years ago, it's done put a spell on me.
I know.
It's partially a musical scene, though only from the perspective of Red. There's a whole little bit within his little mountain cabin about all the different horns he can interchangeably use in order to stay prepared. But the part we care about is the location change.
You got one life, so handle it with care.
And now we're in it. Camera calmly peering into the trapdoor to reveal how deep it goes as we land right into the minecart. Our musical number has become a pseudo chase scene too. And as we turn the corner, the camera emphasized the roller coaster movement by transitioning from a wide angle to a third-person shot between the heads and into a POV shot, just in time to catch an impossibly strong drop. And a glimpse of a couple other minecarts. As we now steam around the side of the mountain. Everything's staying on track so far, but it's still an uncomfortably chaotic ride. So the camera's still pulling in the work with it swinging around a little scattered as it reaches up to them. Stabilizing for this tracking side angle as they handle multiple ups and downs before switching us to POV again with a blurred out background of trees for some more environmental context. But it's the end of our song number officially, with one more POV of frantic rumblings at top speed before petering out to this more comfortable front angle. Now that the worst of it is over, we don't really need to keep an express eye on the track anymore. We can slow down, ready for some dialogue. Although the track is now more going left and right, it's still a little frenetic, as Red is still getting pushed around a little bit. Never mind, no time for dialogue. Time to get right back into singing. Our moment of peace has passed. Time to up the ante again. The avalanche shot is so perfectly static, like a documentary piece to juxtapose Red and the goats blurring and jittering in the minecart. While now the drama's in the background, the first shots stick to the front of the minecart, but a little low to emphasize the danger above them.
It's rumbling like a mountain lion. I'm afraid that I'm scared. And if that boar was just smell, you hear just how I scream.
The goat can't scream, so this is the best he can do. Again, coming back to that static shot, but now tilting down a tad to show the avalanche is progressing, as the camera now stays wide to catch the whole event of the snow decimating all of the track behind them. Though since it's clearly a lower budget held to this movie, approximately less than $8 million, they have rock debris as well in there, but the transparency of the snow means they don't actually have to animate the tracks actively being destroyed or anything. We don't need it anyway. The stakes are still high. Coming to an Avalanchean close, now we're back to close-up. The audience gets the gist. The background's white and still frantic with their constant rumbling as the camera comes to a calming reveal of a tunnel entrance. Not a snowflake in sight. It's a glimpse of hope and escape, so it's a pretty peaceful shot, all things considered. Showcasing the near miss as a side shot to show the snow almost catch them as they enter. All pretty good and standard stuff so far. With a new danger now in front of them again, so naturally it's time for some perspective shots again. As the yodel screaming comes to a close, we only just witness the tracks come to an abrupt ramped ending, and there's no avoiding that one. So As Red's the only one that's really reacting to all of this properly, the camera gets closer and closer to her face for the full reaction before the wide of the minecart taking flight and slow-moing out to the clouds as her screams echo out. It's Anne Hathaway's voice, by the way. In 2006, we're still in the early days of her career, doing an awful lot of young girl roles, because that's how she was typecasted at the time. Anyway, from here, things take a strange turn.
Granny? Use the hood, Red!
Life becomes ethereal for a moment as she glides through the skies, taking it all in with some angelic music. Granny's not dead, by the way, but for some reason, she's up higher still, a guardian angel somehow, always by her side, and referencing Star Wars' Use the Force Luke for some reason. And so Red does as she is told. And much like what we just addressed in Flushed Away, parachutes can come from anything in cartoons. Of course! The hood works as a parachute too, and the goat has his own methods of the helicopter variety. And though we skipped the majority of the goat's actual song, the whole thing was about being prepared. Here's an extract of the chorus.
Be prepared, be prepared. This lesson must be shared.
So it loops back to this end and puts a little knot on this thread. And from there, Red is charmed by the moment as we crossfade to our next scene, the moment she actually reaches Granny's house. But we're not here to digest that scene too. Instead, we're going to cap off Red's tale there and head on over to the big bad wolf of the story, who's very much got a twist of his own.
I'm an investigative journalist. You've probably read my column, Facts and Fairy Tales.
It's a parody, and the obvious bad guy is not the bad guy in our tale. So fast forward some of his investigations into the Goody Bandit a little more, and we end up in a new underground cave shortcut. And after a little bit of running from some unknown beast, low to the ground with a bit of a wider lens to distort the edges of the frame a little more, they eventually reach the exit for this prior scene.
Look, a way out.
The exit exposed with this perfect golden lighting. It doesn't make logical sense, but works great thematically like a literal godly spotlight of exactly what they're looking for. It's a cartoon. And where does it lead to? Of course he goes here. I mean, it's also the subject of the video, so like, you could have guessed. A new part of the track we've never seen before. For some reason, having a random pitfall to the underground over here. Shown with a pretty lengthy shot for this movie's track record, so everyone can soak in those familiar low-budget textures.
Come on.
And naturally, like Chekhov's gun, we have Chekhov's minecart. You gotta get into one if you've noticed them. The wolf too is contributing to this scene just like Red's before him, but you can bet it'll be a different experience.
Living like a bandit.
Now this is a shortcut.
For a start, they don't have a yodeling goat musical, but they do have a specific genre of music in the soundtrack for their sections. Good old R&B, cause this wolf is cool. The camera now a little less emotive than with Red, still a bit frenetic, but neither of the characters mind this time around. So it's just kinda going along with it. But the real kicker is the not so subtle Easter egg in the background.
Now this is a shortcut.
That was Red, falling from that impossible drop last time we saw this. Look, you can even see her perspective of them in the blur of all this. The scenes are taking place simultaneously, and we, the audience, gets to soak up more information that none of the characters are aware of separately.
It's just Old Man Mountain showing us who's boss.
And now they're just playing with us. The audience already knows there's an avalanche coming, and this connects them directly to it, whilst also making the wolf seem the fool for disregarding it when we know what's really coming. Also for the first time, the camera is locked onto the minecart, perfectly tracking it as they discuss. On brand for not being so chaotic as the two dismiss the dangers. Though that thing should totally be ricketing more based off of Red scenes. Maybe it's just a cleaner minecart, or it's more cinematic influence smoothing out the motions, as after all four characters are unreliable narrators. Some identical scenes are presented entirely differently or cut at different points to help illustrate their perspective and perceptions. And on that note, they enter that tunnel. Same side angle as last time, but with all the fearful propellant gone. Probably because they never had to handle the actual drop at the start. They've just had the smoother side-by-sides that Red got only briefly earlier, since they're ahead on the track. And they also tactically skipped the ups and downs Red had whilst avoiding the avalanche. A much more peaceful journey.
Hey, looky, I found this box of candles. A big box.
Box of candles, light them up!
And just as they enter in, the soundtrack now simplified down to less layers as they reach the peaceful indoors. And touch on a whole new topic. Candles. We don't remember candles in Red's rendition for this sequence. All we can remember from her time is...
Wow, that's nice and bright. What kind of candles are those?
Bean of meat cane. Must be Italian.
So that explains it. Also gotta love the accuracies of this cave, as while the question is being asked, they turn the corner. Same as Red did last time. I'm sure they just outright used the same asset again, but it works so well in their favor. And just by simply using a different camera for it, it feels refreshing. Now this gag was in all of the Hoodwinked trailers. I know people who quoted it who never even saw Hoodwinked. But my reality came crashing down when I realized this wasn't an original joke. It's a reference.
Fragile. It must be Italian.
And you know, now's probably a good time to mention that I've actually been part of a podcast that discussed this movie fully, over on Movie Struck.
I have to ask you the question that I ask every guest at the top of the show. Why did we watch Hoodwinked?
Hoodwinked is my, guilty pleasure of a movie. So if you're curious to see my thoughts on the rest of my favorite movie, check the link down below to see the rest of it, with a friend I made last VidCon, Sophia. And let her know that I sent you, because this episode was from quite a few months ago, and I haven't told her that I'm about to potentially send another way to her now. And while we're on plugs, you can also find in the description our link tree to all of our other outlets, as well as a terrible episode on the sequel to this movie. Never have I ever been more disappointed by a franchise. They ruined my favorite movie. And if I'm just new to you, a simple subscribe will do.
Close the candle.
Gotta love that recognizable scream of Patrick Warburton. A surprising stellar cast in this practically indie animation film. But yes, by now I would hope most of the audience clicked to remember the end of the tracks are missing, and though we don't see it actually there from the boys' perspective, the dynamite certainly gives an explanation. And of course, they all light up as well. The music isn't really going as ham as it could do, it's mostly just some electronic percussion, but hey, cheap film. The movements at least are chaotic enough. Wolf doing most of the throwing as Twitchy just kinda witnesses them flying overhead. And with a simple pulling of the brakes, we understand the full context as to why the tracks abruptly stop at the end for Red. Close up on the handbrake and wide out for the reveal. Mwah, perfect. Also interesting to note that the boys never actually experienced the avalanche themselves. They were too far ahead to even notice it. They had their own things to worry about.
Did you hear something?
And mwah, Anne Hathaway's iconic scream comes back identical to how we heard it last time, as we see her swing off the ramp behind them. Red never noticed them on her run, and neither did the camera. So we could have never predicted the trailing boys were just beneath her this whole time. She had other things to worry about. And now the scene is over from the wolf's perspective.
Hello? Paper boy.
Apparently he's saying paperboy. Might be worth doing a retake there, Patrick, but nonetheless, they two just cut to their next scene. And presumably before Red, since she had more of an adventure reaching the place. And a slower fade into the location, if that means anything. And now it's time for our final angle, much faster than usual and coming with a heap of plot twist on its own. It's Granny Puckett's time, who it turns out is an extreme sports athlete. Surprise! There's a moment where she's on the phone to Red with knitting needles, but no, they're actually skis. I love it. Anyway.
Granny is finished. Now we go after the little red-hooded girl.
Granny at around this time has been partaking in a skiing competition, only for a villainous group of humans to crop up playing dirty. Sabotaging her ski into a snowboard, knocking other players down mid-race, and now after ganging up on Granny, finally pushing her off of the cliff. There's a whole B-plot about the Goody Bandit, and these are the Goody Goons. More involved than all the others know. So in order to get things back on track...
Afternoon.
Granny impromptu bungee jumps back into position. Definitely a parody of the usual Little Red Riding Hood grandma. And as she spots the gang a little too far away, she hatches a plan to catch them, or just get some adrenaline so she can feel anything at all. Whatever the case.
Oh, applesauce.
She's the one who starts the avalanche by setting off a stick of C4. Rock music now is the genre of her soundtrack as she beats the avalanche by only inches, cascading against the sun, hopping over obstacles, and as the camera goes wide to provide snowy scale,
An avalanche is coming and I do not feel prepared.
this one's a little less subtle. Since we are more than halfway through the movie, there's been all sorts of more subtle examples, and now the movie just wants to be a bit more clear. Plus, it's a bit of a vaguer connection this time around, so we just get full-on reuse shots from the other perspectives. It's another method. Was anyone else wondering where the avalanche started? And now back to her adrenal rush, Granny blasts past the goons and engulfs them in snow, and claiming the victory for herself. 2 birds with 1 stone. Every critter who could skizzle their grizzle. What? And Granny finishes it off with,
I wish I had a video camera.
a little bit of boomer techno datedness and a sudden parachute, she sets off intentionally. Who knew her goodies made merch like that? I want parachute merch. But also, as we see the other perspective, it suddenly becomes clear. She is magically flying in the clouds and her sports clothes were left behind. She looks identical to the granny of home. Been a while since we last saw this scene, so maybe we forgot about it after 30 full minutes. And Granny has been soaking it in for a minute, a moment of freedom in flight, before she sees her granddaughter in flight too. And as the extreme sports expert, she knows how to keep Red safe. Not because she's inexplicably dead and in heaven as a ghost. Honestly, I kinda wish we could have seen her parachute strings in Granny's retelling as a little extra unreliable narration from Red's view, but I'll allow it. This is clearly a full shot reused rather than a remake, so it was probably already baked into the animation since this is 2006. And so, Red does so.
Ah, that's my girl.
Now seen from a new angle up top as the music crescendos on the good news. And though we've seen Red fade into the cottage scene and Wolf just cutting straight to it, how does Granny enter? Catching him before he actually reaches his cut in. It's an off-screen Wolf making their way up to the doorway. Very nice. Done as a pseudo POV shot from up high with a zoom in as she focuses on the subject. Pretty practical, but adds a hint of motion since she is in motion here. Though the weird bit is how this whole movie started off here with one last unanswered question. Why is Granny like that? The Wolf has no explanation. Oh, so that's how it happened. A wide shot to see how both entered at the same-ish time and a static interior on the chaos, like a shot out of a sitcom or something. But at this point, we're well into the next scene over. The movie's good at smoothly blurring the lines between scenes, so I'll stop it there before I get ahead of myself. Cinematically, there's only a handful of camera techniques going into this simul scene that boasts some artistic prowess, but it's in the writing, in the world building and collaborations that this movie really shines. Maybe I just need to watch more crime dramas with unreliable narrators, but for 10-year-old me, this was mind-blowing. A time travel movie without all the time travel. Brilliant! Just a shame it starts on such controversial grounds. Anne Hathaway fully requested to not do any more little girl roles after this, so while it's certainly not perfect contextually, I think I'll be keeping this movie near and dear to my heart. That was the scene that changed Hoodwinked, or exemplified the core cool part of the concept for me. If you'd like to hear me rambling about the entire movie's runtime, then do again check out the Movie Struck collaboration down in the description. Otherwise, for now, my name's been Dazz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit.